The city beneath the blue dome before the desert learned how to erase footsteps. Before prayer learned how to fade into habit, there was a city that refused to forget. Its blue domes did not merely reflect the sky, they held it, trapped in glazed stone, layer upon layer of remembered dawns. At night, when the wind slid through silent streets and the minarets cast shadows without voices, the city breathed like something alive, slow and patient. Every wall listened, every stone waited. In this place, memory was not carried by blood or song, but carved, pressed, and sealed into rock, until forgetting itself became a crime against the earth. And on the night when the first dome whispered a name no living mouth had spoken, the city began to choose what must be remembered and who must disappear so that memory could endure. Chapter 1: The Dome That Remembered Too Much at Dawn. The city awoke before its people did. Light slid across the blue domes of Samarkand like a slow tide, catching in cracks. No mason remembered carving from above. The domes appeared serene, perfect hemispheres holding the color of the sky. From below, they were heavy with age, their tiles dulled by centuries of prayer, dust, and unspoken names. Birds circled, but never landed. Even they seemed to sense that stone here listened too closely. Azim rose before the call to prayer, as he always did. He was young, scarcely 20 winters, yet the weight of the archives bent his shoulders as surely as if he were an old man. His work lay beneath the city, in the vaults carved long before the domes were raised, where the stone scribes had once etched memory into walls thicker than any fortress. Azim was not a stone scribe, not truly. That order had vanished generations ago. He was a reader, a copyist, tasked with transcribing fading inscriptions so that scholars could pretend the past still belonged to them. He washed his hands in cold water and paused when the basin rippled though the air was still. For a moment he thought he heard his name, not spoken, but pressed into his mind, the way pressure builds before pain. He dismissed it. The city was old. Old things creaked. The streets were quiet as he walked. Merchants had not yet lifted their shutters. The minarets stood tall and mute, their balconies empty. Once, it was said, the call to prayer from these towers could be heard beyond the desert's edge. Now the sound died quickly, swallowed by stone. Azim passed beneath the largest dome, the blue crown, its surface veined with hairline fractures that caught the morning light. He had copied its inscriptions dozens of times. Yet something new glimmered their lines, too sharp to be weathered, too deliberate to be accident. He stopped. The lines formed characters. They were writing themselves. Azim's breath caught. The stone did not glow or burn. It simply accepted the marks, as flesh accepts scars. The letters settled, deepening by the heartbeat, spelling a name he recognized, though he had never read it in any archive. His grandfather's grandfather, a man erased from records after a failed rebellion no one spoke of. Azim reached out, then pulled his hand back, afraid that touch might complete whatever the city had begun. A bell rang beneath the streets, a low, resonant sound that had not been heard in living memory. The stone vaults were opening. Below ground, the air was cool and dry, preserved like a sealed tomb. Azim descended the steps 2 at a time, his oil lamp casting long shadows that stretched and clung to the walls. The inscriptions here were older, carved in layers so dense that one name often cut through another, as if memory itself had fought for space. This was where the city kept what it could not afford to lose. The bell echoed again, and with it came a tremor. Dust fell like pale snow. Azim steadied himself against the wall and felt something beneath his palm movement, subtle but undeniable. The stone pulsed, slow and rhythmic, like breath. "You remember too much," he whispered, unsure why the words came. The vault answered, not with sound, but with weight. Images pressed into his mind, builders raising the first dome under a sky untouched by smoke. Scholars arguing whether memory should be sung or sealed. A council deciding that flesh was too fragile to be trusted with truth. He saw the stone scribes take their vows, carving until their hands bled, believing that if memory could not die, neither would the city. Then he saw the cost, faces without names, children whose laughter ended, metaphysical, whole streets emptied so that the walls could be filled. The city had not merely recorded the past, it had consumed the present to preserve it. Azim staggered back, gasping. His lamp flickered, but did not go out. Instead, its flame bent toward the wall, drawn as if by wind. A new inscription appeared at eye level, fresh and dark. Azim ibn Rashid, his knees weakened. "No," he said, aloud this time, "I am not dead." The stone did not correct him. Above, the city stirred. Shouts rose as people noticed the writing spreading across domes and gates, names appearing where none had been before. Some wept, some fell silent, recognizing ancestors long erased. And some read their own names and understood in an instant what it meant to be remembered by a city that could not forget. Azim fled the vaults as the bell rang a third time, louder now, urgent. He emerged into a square filled with fear. The blue crown loomed overhead, its cracks widening, not breaking, never breaking. The dome was learning. An old man grasped Azim's sleeve. "You work below," he said. "Tell us can it be stopped?" Azim looked up at the writing, at the endless patience of stone. He thought of the images forced into his mind, of memory piled upon memory, until there was no room left for breath. "I don't know," he answered honestly. "But if the city keeps remembering like this, there will be no future left to write." The wind passed through the square, carrying no sound, no relief, and high above, the blue dome continued to carve the past into itself, preparing to choose what must endure and what must be sacrificed to make space. Chapter 2. The stone scribes wake by noon. The city had learned to whisper. It did not shout or riot. It murmured, as if afraid that speaking too loudly would cause the domes to listen more closely. Names continued to surface along walls and arches, appearing with a patience that felt intentional. The merchants covered their stalls, not to protect goods from dust, but to hide the inscriptions crawling toward their thresholds. Children traced letters with trembling fingers and were pulled away by mothers who remembered old warnings without remembering where they had learned them. Azim moved through the square like a man walking inside a dream that refused to dissolve. The elders convened beneath the silent minaret, the only tower that had never cracked. They stood in a circle where the shadow lay thickest, believing without proof that stone listened less in darkness. Azim was summoned not for authority, but proximity. His name had appeared first among the living, and the city, it seemed, had marked him as relevant. When he arrived, breathless, he found the elders arguing over a truth none wished to claim. This had happened before, not often, not completely, but the city had remembered too much once already. They called it the wake of the stone scribes. Long ago, when the vaults were new and the domes still shone like fresh sky, the stone scribes realized their error. Memory, once sealed, demanded more space to keep the walls from cracking. They began to erase the living quietly, ritually so. The city could continue to remember without collapsing. When the last scribe understood the full weight of what they had built, he sealed the vaults from within and ordered the bells silenced. The city slept, but it never forgot the method. Azim listened as the elders spoke, his mind snagging on details that echoed the visions forced into him at dawn. If the wake has begun, one said, then the city will balance itself. Another replied, balance means loss. A third asked the question none wanted to answer, who decides? The answer arrived without ceremony. A courier ran in, pale and shaking, carrying a fragment of tile pride from a dome. Upon it was written a list not long, but deliberate. Names aligned, as if measured. Some were dead centuries, some lived still. At the bottom was a space, blank, waiting. Azim felt the pressure return, a hand upon his thoughts, urging him to understand. The city was not random, it was accounting. That night the bells rang again, and this time the sound carried beyond the vaults, beyond the minarets, rolling into the desert where nothing should have answered. Azim could not sleep. He walked the streets until his feet ached, counting names as they appeared, noting the pattern he wished did not exist. Those whose names emerged first were those least remembered by others: orphans, debtors, men and women whose stories had slipped through human hands. The city was reclaiming what people had failed to hold. Near Issyk gateholder than the domes, older than the city's present Namazim, found a figure chiseling at the wall. The man was thin, wrapped in dust-stained cloth, his movements precise despite the hour. He did not flinch when Azim approached. "You can't stop it by removing the letters," Azim said quietly. The man smiled without warmth. "I am not removing," he replied. "I am answering." He introduced himself as Yusuf, last apprentice to a stone scribe whose name had never been carved. Yusuf had spent his life erasing fragments, delaying awakenings like this one, never stopping them. "The city remembers because it fears forgetting," Yusuf said, tapping the wall. "And it fears forgetting because forgetting is the only thing that keeps people free." They walked together, speaking low, watching the city work. Yusuf explained the balance. Memory sealed into stone demanded silence from flesh. When memory overflowed, the city thinned the living until equilibrium returned. Unless, Yusuf added, someone teaches it another way. At the vault entrance, the ground shuddered. A crack opened, not wide, but deep. From it rose a sound like breath drawn through teeth. Azim felt his name pull, a gentle insistence. Yusuf grasped his arm. "If you go below again," he said, "it will finish the carving." Azim nodded, then stepped forward anyway, because the pull was not coercion, it was invitation. Inside, the walls had changed. Old inscriptions blurred, as if softening, making room. In their place were spaces shaped like faces, waiting. Azim pressed his palm to the stone and spoke not a prayer, not a command, but a question. "What do you need?" The city answered with images of collapse, domes shattering, memory spilling like sand, everything lost at once. Then it showed another path, dangerous, unfinished, where memory moved, breathed, was carried again by people who could choose what to hold and what to release. Azim withdrew his hand, shaking. Above, the bells fell silent. For the first time since dawn, the city paused. Names stopped appearing. The blank space on the tile remained empty. Yusuf exhaled. "You've bought time," he said. "Time is expensive here." Azim looked toward the blue crown, its cracks holding waiting. He understood now that the city did not want blood. It wanted certainty. And certainty was something only the living could refuse to give. The wake had begun, but it had not yet decided how it would end. Chapter 3: The Weight of Unwritten Names. The pause did not last. At dawn, the city exhaled, and the sound was stone grinding against stone, deep and patient. No new names appeared on the domes, but the old ones darkened, their edges sharpening as if the city were pressing them deeper into itself. Azim woke with his hands aching, fingers cramped as though he had been carving through the night. When he opened his palms, fine gray dust spilled onto the floor. He did not remember touching stone. Outside, Samarkand moved carefully. People spoke in half sentences, avoiding names entirely, afraid that sound might summon letters onto walls. Children were kept indoors. The elders ordered cloth draped over inscriptions, but the fabric grew stiff by evening, threads stiffened by dust that should not have been there. The city was not advancing, it was preparing. Azim sought Yusuf near the vaults, but found only an empty space where the ground had settled, smooth, as if it had never been disturbed. In its place stood a slab, newly risen, unmarked, its surface too clean for its age. Azim felt a chill. The city had learned a new silence. It was not carving, it was listening for resistance. He returned to the archives beneath the blue crown, carrying a bundle of old scrolls, human records, fragile and incomplete. He spread them across a low table and read until his eyes burned. Names scratched in ink, crossed out, rewritten, births without dates, deaths without causes. Here was memory that bled, that contradicted itself, that left gaps no stone could tolerate. As he read aloud, softly, the walls trembled. The stone did not accept the words, but it reacted to them, unsettled by their imprecision. An idea formed, dangerous and unclear. The city remembered too much because it remembered perfectly. What if imperfection were introduced deliberately? What if memory were made to move again? Azim climbed to the roof beneath the blue crown as the sun reached its height. From there, the domes spread like a frozen sea. He chose a tile, already cracked, one bearing a name half-erased by time, and spoke it aloud, mispronounced, deliberately wrong. The wind caught the sound and scattered it. The stone shuddered. The name blurred, not disappearing, but softening, as if uncertain of itself. Below, a murmur rose. People felt it too. A woman called her dead sister by a childhood nickname no record held. A man sang a song his father had changed mid-verse every time he told it. The air filled with flawed remembrance, and the city wavered. The response was swift. A tremor ran through the silent minaret, and for the first time, a hairline crack appeared near its base. The city was not angered, was afraid. Fear pressed back, heavy and cold, seeking the source of disruption. Azim felt it settle on him, the same insistence as before. Stronger now, his name darkened beneath the dome, letters sinking deeper. That night, Yusuf returned, emerging from a passage that should not have existed. His face was drawn, eyes bright with urgency. "You've taught it doubt," he said. "It will not forgive that easily." He produced a chisel, old and worn. The stone scribes used this when they needed to erase without breaking the wall. There is a place where memory is anchored. If it falls, the city must choose again how to remember. They moved before dawn, through corridors that shifted when not watched. At the heart of the vaults stood a pillar older than any dome, its surface layered with the first carvings, raw, uncertain, human. Names here were shallow, easily worn away. This was where memory had been fixed. Azim placed his hand against the pillar and felt resistance, not physical, but conceptual. The city pressed back, showing him what would be lost: continuity, certainty, the comfort of knowing. He lifted the chisel anyway. When stone met metal, the sound rang through the vaults like a bell struck underwater. Above, the blue crown cracked further, but did not fall. Names across the city flickered, some fading, some reasserting themselves. The blank space on the list filled, then emptied again. Azim stepped back, breath ragged. He had not destroyed memory. He had loosened it. Yusuf nodded once. Now, he said, the city will hunt you. Outside, the wind rose, carrying voices, imperfect and alive. The wake had changed. It was no longer only about what the city remembered, but about what it was willing to let go. Chapter 4. When stone began to forget, the city did not pursue Azim with guards or blades. It hunted him with absence. At sunrise, names vanished, not all, not cleanly, but in fragments. Letters thinned, curves softened, strokes broke apart like chalk left in rain. People woke to walls that no longer knew them fully. A mother traced her son's name above the doorway and found only the first syllable remaining. An elder recited a lineage and felt it unravel halfway through, threads of ancestry slipping through his mind. Panic spread, not loud, but deep, settling into the bones of the city. Azim moved through this quiet terror unseen. His presence repelled rather than concealed. The streets seemed to bend away from him, angles subtly wrong, alleys lengthening when he approached. The city was not striking, it was isolating. To forget was dangerous. To be forgotten entirely was annihilation. Yusuf walked beside him, counting breaths. "This is the cost," he said. "Stone does not forgive interference. It withdraws." They passed a wall where a single word remained carved, deep and untouched: balance. Around it, everything else had faded. The city was teaching a lesson, even as it learned one. By midday, the elders convened again, this time in the open, beneath a sky stripped of clouds. Azim was summoned not by messenger, but by pull. The ground itself guided his steps, subtle inclines steering him toward the square. When he arrived, conversations stopped. He saw fear there, but also something new: possibility, thin and sharp as a blade's edge. "You've broken the accounting," the eldest said. "The city is forgetting names that should endure," Azim answered carefully. "It is forgetting nothing it has not learned to release." Murmurs followed. Yusuf stepped forward, holding up the chisel. "Memory was never meant to be permanent," he said, "only meaningful." A tremor interrupted them. The silent minaret shed a sliver of stone. It did not collapse, but the sound echoed longer than it should have. The city was unstable now, caught between perfect recall and living error. If it chose wrong, everything would fall either into rigid silence or total erasure. That night, Azim dreamed with open eyes. The city spoke without images, without pressure. It offered him a bargain. Anchor memory again, stronger this time, and his name would be carved so deeply it could never fade. Refuse, and he would become unrecorded, a life passing without trace, even in human minds. Azim thought of the scrolls, of songs that changed with every telling, of the warmth of being remembered imperfectly. At dawn, he returned to the pillar and did something the stone scribes had never done. He carved a gap knot, a name, not a word, but a space shaped like absence. The stone resisted, then yielded, uncertain. Above, the blue crown exhaled. Cracks eased, not closing, but relaxing. Names stabilized, some clear, some blurred, none absolute. The city had learned to forget, not fully, not safely, but enough. Yusuf smiled, exhausted. "It will never be the same," he said. Azim nodded. "Nor should it be." The wake ended not with silence, but with breathing stone and flesh sharing the burden of memory. And in that shared uncertainty, the city endured.
Chapter 5: The Trial of Living Memory. The elders declared 3 days of stillness. No new carvings were permitted. No old inscriptions were to be touched. Bells were wrapped in cloth, minarets left empty. And the city was asked politely, fearfully, to remain quiet while it learned what it had become. Silence settled unevenly, thicker near the domes, thinner in the outer streets where merchants and travelers waited like men holding their breath underwater. Azim felt the quiet as pressure behind the eyes, the afterimage of a sound too loud to forget. On the first day, memory drifted. People remembered things that had never been carved. A brother's laugh that echoed wrong. A market fire recalled in 3 different seasons. A promise made twice and kept only once. The city did not resist. Stone accepted contradiction poorly, but it no longer rejected it outright. Walls shivered, then steadied as if learning a new weight. On the second day, forgetting arrived. Not violently, not with erasure, but with gentleness that frightened more than loss. A woman realized she could no longer picture her mother's face clearly and did not collapse. A man forgot the exact words of a prayer and spoke anyway. The city trembled when this happened, not in anger, but uncertainty. Memory was slipping out of its control and moving back into flesh. Azim was summoned again, this time not by pull, but by choice. A group gathered beneath the blue crown: elders, scribes, merchants, singers, and those whose names had once been carved deepest. Yusuf stood among them, quiet, hands folded, his chisel wrapped in cloth, like a relic. They had come to judge what Azim had done, but also to decide what they would become. "You have unsealed the city," one elder said. "Now we must decide how it remembers." Azim listened, then answered slowly. "It should not remember alone." Murmurs followed. He continued. "Stone can hold, but it cannot choose. That burden belongs to the living." A proposal emerged, fragile and dangerous. The trial of living memory. Once each year, the city would gather, not to carve, but to speak. Stories would be told aloud, changed by voice and time. Only fragment symbols, not names, would be etched into stone, markers rather than records. The rest would live or die in people. Stone would guide, not govern. The city reacted immediately. Cracks tightened. A low sound rolled through the domes. Not a bell, not a quake, but resistance. Stone did not want uncertainty institutionalized. It wanted assurance. That night, the trial began anyway. Fires were lit in the squares. Not many, enough to gather by. Azim stood apart at first, listening. A boy told of his grandfather, who had never existed as the story claimed. Laughter followed, then correction, then acceptance. A woman sang a song, with verses missing. The crowd filled them in differently each time. The air warmed with voices, layered and flawed. Above, the blue crown darkened slightly, its color deepening as if absorbing dusk. Then the city answered. From the vaults rose a presence, no longer pressure but form. The stone scribes echo what remained of their will coalesced in the square as a distortion of air and shadow. It did not speak in words. It projected certainty. Images of order, of perfect lineage, of walls that never cracked. The crowd faltered. Comfort tugged at them. To be remembered fully was tempting. Azim stepped forward. He did not argue. He told a story. It was his own, but incomplete. He spoke of his grandfather's grandfather, the name that had first appeared at dawn, but he left out the rebellion's end. He let the listeners fill it. Some imagined courage, some regret, some failure. All were true enough. The distortion wavered. Certainty fractured. Yusuf added another story, contradicting Azim's openly. Laughter rippled. The echo recoiled, unable to reconcile competing truths without hierarchy. Stone strained. Cracks widened, then stopped. At dawn, the echo dissipated. Not destroyed, but diminished. The city had not lost its memory. It had lost its monopoly. The elders met once more. This time, their decision was unanimous. The vaults would remain open, but unsealed. The pillar would stand, scarred and imperfect. Stone scribes would not be revived. Instead, keepers of breath singers, storytellers, witnesses would be honored alongside masons. Azim felt his name ease beneath the dome. Still there, still legible, but no longer deepening. The city had accepted the trial. Not fully, not safely, but enough to continue. As the fires died and people returned to their homes, Yusuf placed the chisel in Azim's hands. Not to use, he said, to remember why you shouldn't. Above them, the blue crown held the sky as it always had. But now it reflected movement clouds passing, light shifting, no longer frozen. Stone had learned to share.
Chapter 6. The city that learned to breathe morning arrived without ceremony. No bells rang. No tremors followed the sun's ascent. The city awoke as a living thing does after illness, cautious, testing each motion, unsure which pains were permanent. Azim stood beneath the blue crown and watched light move across the tiles. For the first time since the wake began, the light did not catch on fresh letters. It flowed. The elders issued no proclamations. Instead, they dismantled habits. Stone covers were removed from inscriptions, not to preserve them, but to let weather soften their edges. The silent minaret remained cracked, its fracture left unrepaired as a reminder rather than a wound to be hidden. The vaults stayed open, guarded not by locks, but by watchers whose task was to say no to refuse unnecessary carving, to question certainty when it asked for permanence. The city resisted in small ways. A wall rejected mortar meant to smooth a scar. A dome shed a tile where an inscription had been deliberately blurred. These were reflexes, not rebellions. Yusuf called them after breathstone, releasing the last of a held tension. It learned one way for centuries, he said. It will stumble, learning another. Azim took on a role without ceremony. He became a listener. People came to him not to record, but to test stories aloud, to feel how words changed when spoken. A trader told the tale of a caravan lost to sand. Azim asked him to repeat it without naming the dead. The story survived. A widow recounted a marriage in fragments. Azim asked her to leave one fragment untold. The fragment grew more alive for its absence. Not all welcomed this. A group calling themselves the Preservers gathered at night, arguing that loosened memory invited lies. They traced faded names with chalk, restoring clarity by hand. Where they worked, stone hardened again, resisting weather. The city tolerated this. For now, balance required friction. The first true test came with the drought. Rain failed to arrive when it should have, and fear remembered faster than hope. The Preservers claimed this was punishment for uncertainty. The city withdraws its favor, they said. It remembers our betrayal. They demanded a return to carving, to certainty sealed in stone. Crowds gathered, drawn by the comfort of rules. Azim stood with Yusuf at the edge of the square and felt the old pressure stir. The blue crown darkened slightly, tiles cooling. Stone was listening again. "We cannot argue belief," Yusuf murmured. "Only practice." That evening, instead of carving a plea, Azim organized a night of shared breath. Fires were lit on rooftops. People were asked to sit in silence together, counting breaths until they lost count. It was not prayer, it was presence. The city reacted oddly. Cracks warmed. The darkening eased. At dawn, clouds gathered, not enough to end the drought, but enough to prove that stone was not the source of rain. The preservers did not dissolve. They adapted. Some joined the watchers. Others left the city, seeking places where memory could be made absolute again. Samarkand did not pursue them. Letting go had become policy. In the vaults, something else changed. The pillar Azim had scarred began to grow inscriptions again, but not names. Symbols appeared, a curve suggesting breath, a break suggesting choice, a dot suggesting pause. Stone was learning a new language, one that guided without dictating. Azim felt a quiet pride tempered by fear. Languages evolve, they can be twisted. One night, as the city slept lightly, Azim felt the pull return gentler than before, but unmistakable. He descended alone. At the pillar, the stone did not show him collapse or certainty. It showed him roads, paths diverging, converging, some ending abruptly. The message was not demand but warning. Breathing was work. Forgetting required vigilance. When he returned to the surface, Yusuf was waiting. He had aged in these days, lines deepening, eyes softer. "The city will need a keeper," he said, "not of stone, of practice." Azim understood the burden implied and did not accept it aloud. Titles hardened too quickly. At sunrise, the blue crown reflected clouds moving fast, shadows racing across tiles. The city breathed, uneven but alive. Memory no longer sat like a weight. It moved like weather, sometimes harsh, sometimes kind, never owned. Azim walked the streets as a citizen among citizens. His name remained beneath the dome, legible but shallow, enough to be found, enough to fade. And somewhere beneath the city, stone practiced, forgetting one breath at a time. Chapter 7: The Return of the Fixed Word. The first fixed word appeared at the city's edge, where the desert pressed closest to stone. It was carved deep into a gate that had never borne inscription, a single term cut with such precision that weather recoiled from it. Those who saw it felt an immediate calm, the kind that settles when a decision has already been made. The word did not glow. It did not announce itself. It simply was. By midday, copies emerged, not carved by hand, not spoken into being, but appearing where preservers had once gathered, where chalk lines had lingered too long. The city did not resist these marks. It stiffened around them, like muscle tensing around a wound. Azim felt the change as a tightening behind the eyes, a narrowing of possibility. He found Yusuf beneath the silent minaret, studying a new inscription. "This is different," Yusuf said. "This is not memory, it's command." The fixed words did not name, they defined. Each carried an instruction: remain, obey, endure, without context, without story. Stone accepted them readily. They required no interpretation. Crowds formed, drawn by relief. Fixed words promised an end to argument, to the labor of choosing what to remember. A drought had made people hungry for certainty. The preservers returned openly, no longer defensive. They spoke of stability, of walls that would not waver. The city listened. Azim stood before a fixed word etched into the gate and spoke a story against it. The stone did not blur, the word held. Where stories invited variance, the fixed word consumed it. The pillar below responded faintly, its symbols paling. That night, the blue crown reflected a sky unnaturally still. Clouds froze in place, edges too sharp. The city was holding its breath again. Yusuf brought grim news. In the vaults, old inscriptions were reasserting themselves, lines deepening, names sharpening. The city was reverting not to memory, but to law. Someone is teaching it to obey, he said. And stone loves obedience. They traced the source to the outskirts, to a half-buried hall where a council of preservers had gathered with masons and scholars who had never trusted breath. There, they were carving not histories, but axioms, truths meant to outlast debate. Each fixed word anchored the next, a lattice of certainty spreading inward. Azim confronted them at dawn. He did not accuse, he asked what they feared. The answer was unanimous: drift. A city that changed could be lost. Fixed words would hold it fast. You are teaching stone to rule, Azim said. It will do so without mercy. The reply was calm. Mercy is inefficient. The first bell rang by itself. A sound older than the wake rolled through the streets. People fell silent as inscriptions sharpened everywhere. The city had chosen efficiency. The blue crown darkened, its cracks tightening until they seemed to vanish. Azim felt his name pull deeper now, heavier than before. Yusuf gripped his arm. If the lattice completes, he said, breath will be decorative. They retreated to the pillar, now dim, its symbols fading under the pressure of command. Azim realized then that stories alone could not oppose fixed words. They required something stone feared more than inconsistency. They required loss. Azim raised the chisel not to carve, but to break. One strike would shatter a fixed word, yes, but it would also damage the wall, perhaps the dome, perhaps the city's trust. The cost would be visible, irreversible. Above them, the city waited. Certain, Azim steadied his hand and chose where the blow would fall. Chapter 8. The cost that could not be erased. Azim struck at dawn. The chisel met stone, not with the clean ring of carving, but with a dull crack that seemed to recoil into the city's bones. The fixed word did not shatter neatly. It resisted, splintering the wall around it, spidering fractures outward, like veins forced open. Dust burst into the air, and with it came a sound the city had not made since the first domes were raised, a groan, low and uncontained. People screamed, not in fear of collapse, but in recognition. Damage had meaning. Damage was undeniable. The fixed word blurred, then broke apart into unreadable grooves. Where it had been, the wall remained scarred, ugly and permanent. The city stiffened, then lurched. Across Samarkand, other fixed words flickered. Some held, some fractured. The lattice of certainty wavered, uneven now, incomplete. Azim staggered back, breath ragged. Yusuf caught him before he fell. You've shown it loss, Yusuf said, awe and dread entwined. Stone understands breakage. The response was immediate and severe. The blue crown shuddered, shedding tiles that shattered in the square below. Not many, enough. Cracks reappeared, wider than before, unapologetic. The city was not punishing, it was recalculating. Fixed words demanded perfection. Damage introduced risk. Preservers rushed to contain the fractures, shouting orders, calling for mortar, for reinforcements. But every attempt to smooth the break made it worse. Mortar crumbled, tiles slipped, stone refused repair where the fixed word had been destroyed. The city had learned a new truth. Some losses could not be undone, and therefore could not be ignored. By noon, the elders convened amid debris. Azim stood among them, dust-streaked, hands shaking. Accusations flew, sharp and desperate. You've endangered us all. You've saved us. You've proven nothing. The city listened, absorbing contradiction like heat. Then something unexpected occurred. A child stepped forward and placed a broken tile upright in the dust. On it, with a piece of charcoal, she drew a symbol like those on the pillar a curve. A pause. Others followed. They did not repair the damage. They marked it. Around the broken wall, people gathered, telling stories about what had been lost, their arguments, homes, certainties, none matched. All were accepted, stone quieted, not submission, attention. Yusuf led Azim back to the vaults as evening fell. The pillar glowed faintly now, its symbols clearer where fixed words elsewhere dimmed. Stone was relearning hierarchy. Command without cost no longer held supremacy. Loss demanded priority. In the depths, they found the echo of the stone scribes stirring again, weakened, uncertain. It did not project certainty this time. It projected fear not of forgetting, but of breaking beyond repair. Azim understood then. The city had always equated endurance with intactness. To survive while scarred was a concept it had never fully accepted. He placed the chisel at the base of the pillar not to strike, but to leave it there, visible. You will break again, he said softly, not as threat, but acknowledgement, and you will still stand. Above, the blue crown reflected a sky in motion, clouds tearing and reforming. Fixed words faded faster now, their sharpness dulled by the memory of damage. Some preservers abandoned their work, shaken by the fragility they had tried to deny. Others remained quieter, learning to weigh certainty against consequence. At dusk, rain finally fell, not heavy, not cleansing, but enough to darken the dust and cool the stone. People stood in it, letting water trace the scars on walls. No one tried to smooth them. Azim felt his name lighten beneath the dome. Still there, still breakable. The city had paid a price it could not erase, and in doing so, it had learned the value of scars over commands. But the lattice was not gone. Some fixed words still held deeper within, waiting. The struggle had shifted, not ended. As night settled, Yusuf spoke the fear neither of them voiced aloud. There will be those who try to carve loss itself into law. Azim nodded, watching rain run through cracks like veins carrying life instead of pressure. Then we will have to decide, he said, what must never be made permanent. The city listened, breathing unevenly, alive in its damage. Chapter 9. The law that ate its makers. The rain passed, leaving the city rinsed and restless. Where water had traced the scars, the stone darkened unevenly, recording nothing, remembering everything. Fixed words remained only in pockets, now deeper courtyards. Sealed corridors, certainty had been layered thick enough to resist loss. Those places felt colder. Sound died sooner there. People hurried through without knowing why. By mid-morning, the first decree appeared, not carved, but spoken. A group of preservers gathered beneath an intact dome and announced a rule. All damage must be catalogued, all scars measured, all symbols standardized. Loss, they argued, required governance. Without it, the the city would fracture itself into stories that could not meet. They called it the Law of Scars. Azim listened from the edge of the crowd. He recognized the move immediately. When certainty fails, bureaucracy steps in to finish the work. The city reacted with interest. Laws were efficient. Laws did not need to glow. Within hours, chalk marks outlined every crack in the square. Scribes copied measurements. A ledger was begun. The blue crown cooled again, its color flattening. Stone liked ledgers. Ledgers closed loops. Yusuf found Azim near the pillar at noon. "They are feeding it a new certainty," he said, "not words process." In the vaults, the symbols dimmed as lines were drawn above ground. Loss was being made legible, sortable, tame. The first casualty came quietly. A mason named Harun, whose home had lost a wall tile in the strike, refused to register the damage. He said the scar was private, that it belonged to his family's memory. The law responded politely at first, then firmly. By dusk, Harun's name appeared faintly on a gate near his street. Not a fixed word, a classification. The city tightened. Azim went to Harun's house with Yusuf. They found the family packing in silence. The wall's scar had deepened overnight, edges sharpening as if insisting on attention. "It wants me indexed," Harun said, "so it can place the loss somewhere else." He touched the stone gently. "I will not let it move." That night, the law expanded. Committees formed. Exceptions were debated and denied. Losses that could not be catalogued were flagged as hazards. The city did not carve commands, it routed them. Streets subtly redirected foot traffic toward registration points. Sound carried better near the committees, worse near unregistered scars. Stone was optimizing. Azim addressed the elders at dawn. "You have replaced fixed words with fixed paths," he said. "You are teaching stone to administer." The eldest replied calmly, "Administration prevents collapse." Yusuf shook his head. "It postpones it." The city's answer came before debate could harden. In the outer quarter, a dome failed, not catastrophically, but decisively. Tiles slid, one by one, in a measured cascade. No names appeared, no words, just gravity. The law rushed to respond, to cordon, to record. As it did, the failure propagated not outward, but inward small, slips along regulated routes, precisely where processes intersected. Stone was testing load. Azim realized the danger then. Loss, once governed, would be scaled. Scars would be normalized until their accumulation exceeded tolerance. The city would fail politely, according to plan. He gathered singers, masons, traders, anyone willing to act without instruction. "We will make loss inconvenient," he said. They did not ask how. They trusted the tone. They began by refusing routes. People took longer paths, sang where silence had been optimized, told contradictory accounts to committees, swapped measurements, misfiled ledgers, gently, persistently. Not sabotage, noise, human noise. Stone resisted, then hesitated. Optimization faltered. The city's cooling paused. The law adapted. It consolidated. Committees merged. Authority centralized. A single hall was designated to adjudicate scars. Its doors were sealed with processed consus cues, permissions. Above it, a fixed word reappeared, thin but sharp: order. Azim felt his name pull hard. Yusuf grasped his shoulder. "If order anchors," Yusuf said, "breath becomes non-compliant." They had one chance left, not to break the word that had been done, but to break the assumption beneath it. Laws consumed their makers. When makers forgot, they were temporary. Azim entered the hall alone at dusk. He did not shout. He complied. He queued. He presented a loss, his own name deepening beneath the blue crown. He asked for it to be indexed. The clerks processed the request. They measured, they classified, and when they reached the end, they stalled. Names were not supposed to move. The ledger had no field for relocation. Azim waited. He breathed. He told a story softly to the clerk beside him about a city that learned to breathe by accepting scars it could not place. The clerk listened despite himself. A line was crossed out. Another added. The ledger smudged. Above, order thinned. Azim pressed gently. Place my name nowhere, he said. Let it float. The clerk hesitated, then nodded. A mark was made that was not a mark. The hall shuddered. The fixed word fractured, not shattered, splitting into concepts that argued with one another. Stone recoiled from administration without endpoints. Outside, the city exhaled. Roots loosened. Sound returned to alleys. The committees dissolved into conversations. The law did not vanish. It shrank, chastened, partial, enough to function, not enough to rule. At dawn, the blue crown reflected moving clouds again. Harun's wall remained scarred, unregistered, intact. Azim's name lightened further, still legible, now mobile. Yusuf met him beneath the silent minaret. You let the law eat itself, he said. Azim nodded, only because it forgot it was made by people. The city settled into an uneasy balance, stories breathing. Scars visible, rules provisional. The struggle was not over. It never would be. But for now, Stone had learned a boundary it could not cross without breaking what it sought to preserve. Chapter 10. The choice the city could not make. The city entered a season without a name. It was not peace, and it was not crisis. It was the uneasy interval between decisions, when systems function out of habit rather than conviction. Markets reopened, prayers resumed, softer now, layered with improvisation. The law of scars remained in fragments, guidelines, spoken rather than enforced, remembered rather than carved. Fixed words were rare, thin as old ice, and everyone pretended not to see them. Azim understood the danger of this calm. Balance that depended on memory alone could drift. Balance that depended on rules alone could harden. The city had learned both lessons separately. It had not yet learned how to choose between them when choosing itself became unavoidable. The sign came from the blue crown. One morning, its reflection did not match the sky. Clouds moved overhead, but the dome held them still, as if recalling an older pattern. The city felt it immediately. Breath shortened, sound dulled. Stone was hesitating, caught between motion and certainty. Yusuf joined Azim on the roof beneath the dome. The cracks were neither widening nor closing. It wants instruction, Yusuf said quietly, not command, not story, decision. Azim felt the truth of it settle. Stone had learned to forget and to scar, but it had not learned how to choose when neither certainty nor chaos would suffice. That afternoon, a delegation arrived from the outer roots traders, refugees, people who lived between cities. They brought no demands, only a question. Would Samarkand be a place of passage or permanence? The city listened too closely. To answer would be to define itself again. The elders convened in open council, a deliberate choice. No dome overhead, no vault beneath. Wind moved freely. Arguments rose and crossed. Some wanted gates strengthened, memory stabilized. Others argued for openness, for breadth over boundary. Each side had evidence. Each had fear. Azim spoke last. "The city cannot choose for us," he said, "and we cannot choose for the city. But we can choose how choice is made." He proposed a simple, dangerous act. The blue crown would not be repaired, nor further scarred. Its next change, crack, or collapse would decide whether Samarkand anchored or flowed. If it held, the city would accept a degree of permanence. If it fell, the city would become a passage, carrying memory lightly. The council fell silent. Yusuf closed his eyes. To let stone decide through consequence rather than decree was to accept risk without governance. But it was honest. At dusk, the city gathered, no chants, no prayers carved into air, just waiting. The sky darkened, wind rose, the blue crown creaked, a sound like a held breath released halfway. A tile slipped, then another. People gasped, but no one ran. The cracks spread, not violently, not in collapse, but in redistribution. The dome did not fall. It changed. Its perfect curve softened, reshaped by gravity into something asymmetrical, alive. Stone had chosen without being told what to choose. At dawn, sunlight streamed through new angles, casting moving shadows across the square. The city breathed easier. It had not fixed itself into permanence, nor dissolved into passage. It had accepted becoming. Azim felt his name steady beneath the altered dome, not deepening, not fading. Yusuf smiled, tired and relieved. "It learned," he said, "not certainty, not freedom, but consequence." The delegation departed, carrying stories of a city that did not decide what it was, only how it would respond when forced to decide again. Samarkand endured, imperfect and awake. Chapter 11: What remains when stone lets go. After the blue crown reshaped itself, the city entered a quieter discipline. Not rules, not rituals, habits. Masons learned to leave edges unfinished. Scribes learned to write margins wider than text. Singers learned when to stop mid-verse and let the wind complete the line. The city no longer sought balance as a state to be achieved, but as a practice to be renewed. Azim felt the change most acutely in the vaults. The pillars' symbols stabilized into a sparse grammar marks that suggested motion rather than meaning. They no longer multiplied, they waited. Stone had learned restraint, a skill more difficult than memory. Yusuf spent his days there now, not guarding, but observing. "If it starts to explain itself," he said, "we intervene." Most days, there was nothing to do. Yet something was leaving. People noticed it in small ways. A favorite turn of phrase no longer came readily. A face remembered once, with perfect clarity, softened at the edges. This was not the city forgetting for them. It was the cost of letting go of stone's certainty. Some mourned it openly. Others felt relief. The city accepted both reactions without leaning. The elders called Azim to the square at noon. "You have guided us through crises," the eldest said. "But guidance must end." Azim nodded. He had felt the pull easing for weeks. His name beneath the dome had thinned to a suggestion legible, but no longer insistent. Leadership, like certainty, risked hardening if prolonged. A final disturbance arrived from below that afternoon. In the deepest vault, beyond the pillar, the echo of the stone scribes stirred one last time, not as command, not as fear, but as habit-seeking closure. It offered a gift, a final inscription that would summarize the city's learning, a single sentence to guide generations. The temptation was immense. To end uncertainty, with wisdom felt righteous. Azim descended alone. The echo formed gently, almost kindly. He listened, then refused without anger. "If you finish us," he said, "we will stop." He took the chisel not to strike stone, but to scratch a line in dust at the echo's feet. The line vanished as he stepped back. The echo dissipated, relieved. At sunset, Azim climbed beneath the altered blue crown one last time as a named figure. He spoke aloud not to stone, but to people about what remained when stone let go: responsibility, conversation, repair. Then he stepped away. The city did not follow. Night fell. The domes held the sky without trapping it. The vaults slept open. Samarkand endured without needing to be concluded. Only one thing remained unresolved. When memory moved freely, it would eventually move away. Azim accepted that too. Chapter 12 Finale. The wind that chooses to stay. The first winter, after the stone loosened, came without ceremony. Snow fell unevenly, carried sideways by winds that no longer obeyed. The old channels carved into the city's bones. Roofs learned new weights. Streets learned new silences. People learned slowly that endurance did not announce itself. It accumulated. Azim did not leave the city, though many assumed he would. He moved instead between workshops, along the river, through markets at hours when names were unnecessary. He repaired nets with fishermen, listened to children argue about the shape of clouds, and sat beside elders who no longer wanted answers, only company. When asked who he was, he said nothing precise. The answer felt correct. In the vaults, the pillar remained quiet. Its grammar thinned further, until marks resembled breath on glass present, then gone. Yusuf visited less often, not from fear, but because vigilance had shifted outward. The city's true work was no longer below ground. It was in how people corrected one another without humiliation, how they disagreed without reaching for stone. A rumor spread in late winter. The wind had learned to choose. It began at Issachel's imagined edge, though the city lay far from the lake. Travelers carried the idea as if it were water. They said a wind had paused above the surface, not stalled, not trapped, but attentive. It did not scour, it listened. When it moved again, it followed no familiar path. The rumor reached the city as rumors do, fragmented, exaggerated, doubted. Yet something answered inside people. They noticed how often they paused now before finishing a thought, how often they left space for another voice. The wind, whether real or not, had taught them a posture. Spring arrived early. Meltwater traced new lines across stone that had once insisted on permanence. Gardens appeared in courtyards, long abandoned to echoes. Someone planted a tree near the square where proclamations had once been carved. No one asked permission. No one objected. On the equinox, the elders fewer now, and content to be so invited Azim to witness a final act, not a decree, a release. They brought the remaining fragments of the old inscriptions, names, laws, victories, set them in a shallow pit, and burned them until letters collapsed into ash. The ash was mixed with soil and carried to the gardens. Memory that feeds, one elder said, instead of memory that binds. Azim felt the city exhale. That night, the wind arrived not as rumor, not as force, but as presence. It moved through alleys and under doors, lifted dust and laughter alike, and settled briefly in the square. Those awake felt it hesitate, as if considering whether to pass through or remain. No one commanded it. No one begged. The wind stayed. Not forever, just long enough. By morning, it was gone, leaving no sign except the absence of urgency. The city woke without explanation and continued. Children ran, traders argued, repairs resumed. Nothing miraculous remained to be displayed. Azim stood at the edge of the square and understood the final lesson, not as sentence or symbol, but as practice. Freedom was not escape, it was attention. Destiny was not pursuit, it was encounter. And what endured was not stone, not wind, not names, but the choice to keep making room. He turned away and walked, unmarked, into the day. The city did not need an ending. It had learned how to continue.